Okay, here's another review lesson for slope-intercept form, week 11, lesson 2. So here are some of the topics that we're going to review in this video. First of all, what is slope-intercept form? How do you graph an equation in slope-intercept form? How to write the equation from a graph? How to find the equation from 2 points? And how to write the equation from a word problem. It's been quite a bit since we've talked about these things. This was like a week or two worth of lessons. But knowing these skills is definitely going to help prepare you better for Algebra 1 next year. So let's start with what is slope-intercept form. So you guys may remember the equation y equals mx plus b, where m is our slope and b is our y-intercept. Okay. And when we are graphing it, let's say they give us this equation here. We have y equals 1/2 x plus 3. So in this case, our slope is 1/2, and our y-intercept is 3, okay, given that equation. So when it comes to graphing it, we have to always start with our y-intercept. So our y-intercept is 3, so on my y-axis up and down, I'm going to put a dot at 3. And then my slope is 1/2, so that means I need to rise 1 and run 2. And remember, we always run to the right. So from that point that I put on my graph, I'm going to rise 1 space and run 2 to the right. And I can do that a couple times if I want to. I can rise another 1, run to the right, as many times as I need to, so I can form a line between those dots. Now mine's not going to be perfect because I'm trying to draw on my screen, but you kind of get the idea. I can tell right away that this is going to be a positive slope because 1/2 is a positive number. So always graph your y-intercept and then use your slope to move from there. Okay, so this one we're going to do the opposite. We need to determine what the slope and the y-intercept are so we can write the equation. So let's do the y-intercept first. So looking on my y-axis, I see that it intersects right here at 4. So positive 4 is my y-intercept. Now, also looking at the graph, I see that it increases from left to right. So this is a positive slope. So my slope number should be positive. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to count rise over run. So I'm going to pick another point that is right on the crosshairs where one of the things are. So for example, right here, the other intercept. So I need to rise how many to get from that point to the other point. So this point, the x value is 0. And I want to rise till I get to 4. So I actually had to rise 4 spaces. So that's my numerator. And I had to run how many spaces? Well, I had to go from -2 to 0. So I had to run 2. Be careful. This graph is counting by 2. Some of your graphs may only be counting by 1s. So not necessarily how many spaces did we go, it's how much did we move. So we went up 4 and right 2. That simplifies to 2. So my slope is 2, my y-intercept is 4. So if I plug that into y equals mx plus b, my equation would be y equals 2x plus 4. All right, so this one, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to start with my y-intercept. I see that it intersects the y-axis at 5. And this time I notice that it's decreasing from left to right. So it's going to have a negative slope. So I have to determine, to get from one point to the next, how many did I have to move? So I'm just going to go to the next point. So to get from 5, I had to go down 5 all the way down to 3. So that is a total of 2 spaces. So I went down 2, -2. And then I had to move right 1 space. So it would be -2 over 1, which simplifies to -2. Okay, so my equation, if I plug it in for slope and y-intercept, should be y equals -2x plus 5. All right, so now we have to figure out the equation of the line between 2 points. Now this is a part that just takes a little bit of time. It's not hard, it's just a little bit more time consuming. I have the points 2, 2, and 3, 4. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to label my points. So when we talk about ordered pairs, every ordered pair has an X and a Y. So go ahead and give them an X and a Y. Now 2, 2 is our first point, so they're going to get ones with them. So X1 and Y1. 3, 4 is my second point, so they're going to get twos. X2 and Y2. So now we have to figure out what the slope and the y-intercepts are. So to find the slope, we need to use this equation. Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1. And at this point, we simply substitute all these numbers in the correct places. Okay, so I have Y2, which is 4, minus Y1, which is 2, over X2 is 3, minus X1 is 2. So if I subtract straight across the top and the bottom, I get 4 minus 2 is 2, 3 minus 2 is 1, which simplifies to 2. So my slope number is going to be 2. Now to figure out the y-intercept, I get to pick one of my 2 points. It does not matter which one you choose. I'm going to choose 2, 2. And what we're going to do is we're going to substitute all the information we know into y equals mx plus b. All right, so do we know a y value? Yes, we know, according to that ordered pair, that my y value is 2. Do we know m, or the slope? Yes, that's what we just found out before. That's also 2. Do we know an x value? Yes, right from the ordered pair, it is 2. But we do not know what b is, so I'm going to keep that the same. All right, this is just a coincidence. They all end up being 2s. It's not always like that. So now I have to solve for b. So I see I can do this multiplication here and give me 4. So I have 2 equals 4 plus b. And if I want to get b by itself, I have to take away the 4 that's on the same side. So 2 minus 4 gives me negative 2 for my b value. So therefore, my y-intercept is negative 2. And now that you have the 2 key information, the 2 pieces for this equation, we can write the entire equation. Y equals 2x minus 2. Okay, in order to write the equation, you have to have both the slope and the y-intercept. All right, let's try this one more time. So again, we have to find the slope. So I'm going to label my pieces, x1, y1, x2, and y2, and we're going to substitute them into our slope equation here. So y2 is 4 minus y1 is negative 4. Make sure that you have that minus in there and you don't just replace it with the negative because there's 2 different. It's minus negative. Over my x2 is 8 minus my x1 is negative 4. Again, make sure you don't miss that. Now, when we have our double negatives, we can cancel them out because when you subtract negative, it's the same thing as adding. So for the top and the bottom, we can change this all to adding. So 4 plus 4 is 8. 8 plus 4 is 12. And that actually simplifies. We can think, what can you divide the top and the bottom by? We can divide them both by 4. So 8 divided by 4 is 2. And 12 divided by 4 is 3. So 2/3 is going to be our slope. Okay, that's our rise and our run. Now we have to find our y-intercept. So again, you get to choose whatever equation you like or whatever ordered pair. So I don't like the negative, so I'm going to go with 8, 4 this time. And we're going to plug them into y equals mx plus b. So my y value of that point is 4. My m, or my slope, we figured out was 2/3. My x value of that point is 8. And I'm going to add b to it. All right, so now we need to simplify. So I have 2/3 times 8. So you have a choice. You can do 2/3, hit enter on your calculator, and then multiply it by 8. Or you can do 8 times 2 divided by 3. Either way, this is going to give us a decimal for this one. Let me see, 2/3 times 8. Yeah, we get 5.3 through the repeating. So let's go ahead and keep that as a decimal. All right, I want to get b by itself, so I need to subtract my 5.3 repeating from both sides. So if I have 4 minus 5.3, I get negative 1.3 for my b. Okay, if you want to keep it as a improper fraction, you can, but I know my y-intercept in this case is negative 1.3. And then we can just round it from there. All right, so if I were to write this as an equation, I would have y equals, my slope is 2/3 x minus 1.3. So that one didn't end up being a nice, pretty whole number, but you get the idea. All right, now I want to talk about a real life scenario. So in this one, it says a plumber charges $25 for a service call plus $50 per hour of service. Write an equation in slope-intercept form that for the cost C after 8 hours of service. What will be the total cost for 8 hours of work? So in this case, don't be afraid. They changed the variable. So instead of writing y equals, we're going to write c equals. And instead of using x, they want us to use h. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my cube strategy. C stands for circle the number. So I see there's a 25, a 50, and an 8. Okay, next I'm going to underline key information. So a plumber charges $25 for a service call plus, that tells me addition, $50 per hour. Per means multiply. Okay. Now, although we do have the word charges, that number is not going to be negative because we're not taking it away from anything. We're charging somebody that. So just be careful. I know sometimes people think charges means take away. It's not like you have a balance and it's going down. So that one is not part of this problem. Okay, and now we did our C, we did our U for underlining. B is box the question. And it says, the very last line, what will be the cost for 8 hours of work? Okay. E stands for write the equation. So in this one, like I said, it says we want to know the total cost. We don't know that. So I'm going to say C equals, how much does the plumber charge for his service call? He charges $25 plus his $50 per hour. So I'm going to multiply that by H. Now I'll tell you, there are 2 different ways you can write this. You can also flip-flop it and say C equals 50H plus 25. It's the same thing. Okay, and this is still slope-intercept form. Like I said, they replaced Y with C and X with H. Okay, now we have to answer the question. It says, how much would it cost for 8 hours of work? So 8 hours, we're going to substitute in for H. Okay, so if I take my first one and I say C equals 25 plus 50 times 8. So if I do that multiplication, 50 times 8, I get 400. So I have 25 plus 400. So my total cost is going to be $425. Okay, and that's all you need to do for that one. So make sure you use your cube strategy, circle your numbers, underline keywords and information, box your question, write your equation, and solve. All right, so this one, again, was just a review. If you have any problems, please let me know. I'm available on Blackboard Collaborate.